Getting asked out on the day of the summer festival. How romantic is that? I'm Victoria. I'm currently working as an office clerk in a small precision equipment company. When I was 29, David, 2 years older than me, and also from the same company, asked me out during the 4th of July festivities. County fair, exotic fish display, fireworks, and water balloons. He invited me out that day, and I was smitten with David in his casual Hawaiian shirt. However, this was the beginning of my tragedy. Did I agree to date him because I was swept up in the 4th of July mood? Anyway, from that day on, I was in for a turbulent month. A few days later, on July 8th,
"We're both old enough. Can I introduce you to my parents? I'm seriously thinking about being with you. I want to cherish it."
I was told a lot of words like that. What a sincere person he is. Moved by that, I said, "Thank you. I want to be serious about our relationship too." At that time, I took him as a serious person who was seriously thinking about dating me as a person to introduce to his parents. I was really naive at that time. So, on July 20th, we ended up with a speedy introduction to the parents, bringing gifts and meeting them just 2 weeks after we started dating. It was as fast as a temporary job interview. Everything was going smoothly, in a good way for me at that time, but now I think it was in a bad way. David's parents, who I met, were very nice people. Or so it seemed. "Welcome! Oh, you're even more beautiful than I imagined."
"Oh, you're too good for David."
Both of them came to greet me at the entrance, and "We thought young people might hate boring steak for food, so we bought delicatessen food. Please eat as much as you want." They even treated me to a feast, almost buffet style. I was in a dream. "Thank you for such delicious food." I thanked them with gratitude.
"But Victoria is also good at cooking. Even though we have a company cafeteria, she always brings her own lunch."
He praised me for being homely too. No way, he was watching me that closely? It's kind of embarrassing, but it's nice to have someone who pays attention to the details. At this point, I want to slap the old me. But anyway, I was so excited that even being observed about the lunchbox made me thrilled.
"Haha, she's such a beauty and can cook, and saves money with a lunchbox. She'll make a good wife,"
his father said. "This is it. Get married soon, you guys. We seem to get along with her, David. If you don't get married soon, she'll be taken by someone else. At least register the marriage." The conversation even slid to marriage. Even then, I found myself thinking, I'm loved to the point where people might think I want to get married soon. I was ready to dive headfirst into anything, even if there wasn't a visible opening. "So here goes," David said.
"What do you think? We're both at a good age. We could get along well. I think you're more wonderful than anyone I've dated before, Victoria. I want you to be my wife as soon as possible. I want you to make the lunch you eat in the cafeteria for me too."
Oh, thank you," I replied. I, Victoria, had so many things to react to. I agreed despite the pink cloudiness of my brain.
"Let's do the wedding later, but how about we register our marriage for now? It's sudden, but what about August 8th? My mother says it's a lucky and auspicious date. My parents say we can live together until we find a new home. Of course, we think living together is just temporary until we find a new home, and after that, it's up to us whether we continue living together or move to a new place. You can bring just the essentials for now, and gradually move the rest of your stuff from your house,"
he proposed. That's how, after a month of dating, I found myself in the whirlwind process of registering our marriage. My father-in-law said on the bright day,
"I'm taking a paid leave. I'll go too."
And even the mother-in-law came along, leading to a large group of us going to the city hall. Then something happened at the city hall. While we were submitting the marriage registration and the female staff member was checking it, David went over to his parents, who were waiting a bit far off. And what conversation did I hear from there? "Once the marriage registration is submitted, she's ours."
Now she can't run away. We've got our golden goose.
I couldn't believe my ears. In fact, I doubted them. After all, I couldn't imagine such a conversation from their previous friendly attitude. My in-laws were laughing vulgarly. And then my husband was saying something like,
"Gotta catch 'em all,"
laughing in an equally crude manner. It was a quiet city hall. Their conversation was completely audible to me. The staff member and I looked at each other. Then she glanced at the marriage registration in her hand, then quietly asked me, "What do you want to do?" "Huh?" I asked. "There are no omissions. We can accept it. But what do you want to do?" The staff member quietly moved the documents from her lower desk to the counter between us. "This document decides your life." She said that, then lowered her eyes. I took it and silently put it in my bag. There probably aren't many times when a submitted marriage registration is taken back at the counter, but I would later be grateful for the clerk's quick thinking. When I got home, "All right, Victoria, hand over your checkbook," they said almost as soon as I took off my shoes at the entrance. "Huh?" I was taken aback. "You are now the bride of this house by holding that document earlier. That means you've become our source of income. Come on, quickly." I took a second look at my mother-in-law's face in surprise. The tone of her voice had clearly dropped. It may have been my imagination, but even her facial expression seemed to have changed. Even my father-in-law said,
"Your mother is right. You're our daughter-in-law. You should listen to everything your parents say."
When you're surrounded by everyone, there is no escape. I had no choice but to pull out my savings book with trembling hands. $40,000. Living at home while single, money does pile up, huh?
"For now, let's get some steak today."
They had said before that young people aren't satisfied with just steak. What was that all about? My in-laws gleefully called the steakhouse and ordered the highest grade steak. When the steak arrived, they made me take out my wallet from my bag and snatched it, took out 2 $100 bills, and paid. When the delivery man handed over the food and left, they pulled out all the bills left in the wallet and returned the empty wallet to me, saying, "Here." Huh? I sent a pleading look to my husband, but even my husband said,
"Well, from now on, we share the same wallet. Take care of it. You are good at cooking. From today, you're in charge of my meals and those of my mother and father, and do all the cleaning too." I felt utterly desperate. David was unrecognizable from the man I knew just earlier today. "The wife can stay in the corner of the house. I've put all of your things from your home there." They threw all of the packages sent from my home into the attic. I hugged the bag with the empty wallet that had all its money taken away from it. Things had turned out disastrously. The steak from earlier didn't taste like anything because I was too terrified. I probably managed to eat only about 2 pieces because I was so scared. I was at a loss, alone in the attic. But the moment I held that bag, I remembered something was in the bag. I dumped out the contents of the bag. It's here. It was the marriage certificate that I decided not to hand over earlier. It was a good thing I didn't hand it over. That was the only sliver of hope for me. I'll definitely use that hope to escape from here. I spent that night in the attic, meticulously plotting. 2 weeks later. "Oh, are we ordering takeout today?" "It's the steak that you and Dad love. I got it 2 weeks ago too, and you both seem to enjoy it quite a lot." "Wow, aren't we lucky to have such a thoughtful daughter-in-law?" It was now assumed that I would pay. Last time, I couldn't eat as they had taken the money from my wallet, but today I am going to eat as much as I want.
Just as we were waiting, the steak arrived, and I received the large box. Oh, it seems to be more than last time. The box was one size bigger than the previous one. The reason would be understood later. As we sat around the food, dinner began.
The high-end steak sauce is simply exquisite.
It just melts in your mouth. My father-in-law and mother-in-law were singing praises.
I'm glad to see Mom and Dad enjoying it,
my husband said, acting as if he was being a dutiful son, though the money was not coming from his wallet. Then the doorbell rang. Ding dong! Coming! I answered the door. That's unusual, isn't it? At this time? Must be a courier. I could hear my mother-in-law's voice. Hello there. My mother had arrived. Huh? What? With a puzzled expression as if caught off guard, my in-laws and husband looked on as I invited my mother to the table. I thought I'd have my mom join us for dinner today, especially since it's such high-end steak, I said with a smile. My in-laws and husband seemed perplexed. They didn't know she was invited. I suppose they didn't have a reason to decline, though. Awkwardly, my father-in-law and mother-in-law cleared some space, into which my mother came and sat down. Well, she began as she picked up her utensils while everyone else continued their meals. I brought what I was asked to. Thank you, Mom, I replied. My father-in-law seemed to feel bad.
Oh no, we can't accept this,
he mumbled, probably thinking it was a hostess gift. But what my mother brought out wasn't a gift, but an envelope. I took it, pulled out a piece of paper, and started reading it out loud. I decided to play my trump card. I didn't submit it. Boom! I thrust it in front of the three of them. Seeing it, the three of them opened their mouths in surprise. I said I did not submit the marriage license. I held up the paper lined with red ink taut in both hands. It clearly stated the submission date of August 8th. Why? But we went to the office. I heard my mother-in-law's raspy, strained voice. Because I heard you. Once the marriage license is submitted, she's ours. In the conversation that went, she can't escape now. That's why the office worker stops me from submitting it. Now I'm really glad I stopped. And then, the paper I held taut, I slightly adjusted its position in my hand and ripped it up in front of everyone. Oh! My mother-in-law let out a scream with her mouth still open. The sound of the paper tearing echoed in the room. My mother-in-law's wide-open eyes were vacant and pitiful.
So much money.
My father-in-law also let out a dry voice. I tore the paper into tiny pieces, crumpled it, and stuffed it into my bag. I picked up a piece of steak from the table, put it in my mouth, and savored it before swallowing. These steak bills, I'll leave them here with the other invoices. Let's have our last supper.
Were we tricked?
My husband, no, the man who was now nothing to me, screamed. Then, who's the one who deceived who? A roaring voice shouted back at him. It was my mother. The one who tried to trick my daughter with a marriage license was you. Before you blame others, be ashamed of what you've done. The momentum silenced everyone. My mother continued. It's easy to imagine and horrifying to think that my daughter was being oppressed by you three like this. I made the right choice coming here today. If she had been alone, you three might have forcefully taken the marriage license she had. I'm glad my mother came. I noticed that my hands were trembling slightly. By this point, I was a complete stranger, not only to my in-laws, but also to the man and woman standing over there. My fake in-laws and husband would simply have to accept the harsh reality of the costs for the purchased items they would have to shoulder. All three of them were so disheartened that none of them even felt like eating the steak. But I was in a different mood. I ate as much steak as I could fit into my stomach, making up for what I hadn't eaten previously. It tasted like victory, and it was absolutely delicious. My mother also ate quite a bit, but there was still leftover steak. Then, "Can we take the leftovers?" my mother asked, pulling out a Tupperware container she had brought with her. I chuckled a bit, thinking that she had planned this from the beginning. "Sure, it would be a waste to leave it here," I responded. I went to fetch my suitcase from the attic room. "Then, goodbye. Thank you for having us for the past 2 weeks," I said as my mother and I got into our car and drove off. "Really, you've had a rough time with this, haven't you?" my mother commented from the car. "We must be more careful. We rashly agreed to your marriage without considering the timing." My mother said that from inside the car. After that, of course, I spread the news of David's and his family's outrageous behavior around the office. Word got to my boss, who was appalled and questioned his character. As a result, he was transferred to our company's only branch office in Kyrgyzstan. It's odd that our only branch is overseas, let alone in Kyrgyzstan, but the country is thriving in precision machinery production, so our company has a branch there. It's a place so far away, it's known as a dead-end job within our company, hence its nickname, Ghost Station. A place where one ceases to exist. With him being sent off to the Ghost Station, he naturally had no ties to me anymore. As for his family, they were unable to pay for the invoices, and despite borrowing money from payday loans, they eventually had to flee in the night. The following year, during the summer festival, I peeked into their property, and it had been turned into a parking lot. "It's a parking lot, huh?" "It sure is a parking lot." I stood there, taking in the sight with my new boyfriend. "Shall we go to the festival?" "Sure." My new boyfriend was just in a t-shirt and jeans, but it's way better than a Hawaiian shirt. Looking forward to the fireworks, I held his hand. My husband, who can be misogynistic, always seems to look down on me as stay-at-home wife. He would threaten me with divorce the moment I try to speak up for myself. "Try me and we're getting a divorce," he'd say. One day, I found out about his little secret. From that moment on, I lost all the respect I had for him, and I decided to change. I am no longer the submissive wife that he can look down on. With the divorce paper he prepared in my hands, I began my plan to get back at him. My name is Megan. I lost my father when I was in high school, and since then, it's been just me and my mother. Thanks to the money my father left us, I was able to attend an IT vocational school and somehow managed to enter the workforce. Finally, I can pay back my mother. Just when I was beginning to stand on my own feet, my mother passed away from a fatal heart attack. Left all alone in the world, my savior appeared, who is my current husband, Scott. After I started working at my current company, Scott took it upon himself to guide me, a novice in the corporate world. He was there for me when my mother died, voicing his concern for my mental health, urging me to rely on him more. From that point on, I turned to Scott not just for work-related advice, but for personal matters as well. Scott always seemed to be there, leading the way for me. "Megan, you really can't live without me, can you?" He would say that frequently after we officially started dating. And then he proposed. "From now on, I'll protect you for the rest of our lives. Let's get married." At Scott's suggestion, I quit my job after getting married to become a full-time housewife, maintaining a sweet home so my husband can go to work without worry. This became my new job. However, living up to Scott's high standards was tough, and I struggled to keep up with his expectations and household chores. "Hey Megan, what were you doing all day?" My husband would question, to which I would reply meekly, "I cleaned the room, did the laundry, aired out the comforter, and then I went shopping for dinner. I spent some time making beef stew. How's the taste?" "It's okay, but did you really clean?" "Huh? Why?" "There's dust on this shelf." "Oh, I must have missed the spot. I'll be more careful next time.
If you're home all day, at least make sure the housework is done right.
I'm sorry. Scott maintained a superior-inferior dynamic, just like at work, even after our marriage. At one point, he criticized.
Hey, what's up with this meat and potato stew?
Huh? Is it bad?
Why is there pork in a meat and potato stew? It's supposed to be beef.
We always made it with pork in my family.
That's because your family was poor and could only afford pork, right? Are you saying my salary is not enough?
That's not what I meant. Scott would severely scold me if anything didn't go his way, and often belittled me for being a child from a single-parent family without common sense. He started spending his weekends out alone. Hey Scott, where do you go every weekend? One day when I asked him this, Scott's mood quickly soured.
Why do I need to report my whereabouts to you?
It's not a report. I just wish we could spend more time together as a couple on weekends.
You have all day, every day to rest at home while I work tirelessly. Let me spend my days off the way I want.
I'm not asking you to take me anywhere. I just want us to spend some quiet time together.
That's exactly what I can't stand. I married a woman with no special talents and even let her be a housewife. All you need to do is keep quiet and do housework for me.
Scott mumbled and stormed off to the bedroom. The next day, he handed me a piece of paper. It was a divorce notice, with Scott's name already filled in. What does this mean? In shock, I quickly questioned him.
You don't even understand what this is? Guess single mothers don't even teach their kids some basics, huh?
Scott, do you want to divorce me?
This is a warning. It's because of that insolent thing you said yesterday. If you dare to express your opinion to me like that again, I will divorce you right away.
But why? When he said that, I found myself unable to respond. After all, I have nowhere else to go, as I have no family to fall back on. Since then, every weekend when Scott would leave, I had no choice but to quietly see him off. One day, as I was cleaning the house as usual, I noticed that his computer was still turned on. When I looked at the screen to turn it off, a homepage of a hotel resort caught my eye. Could this possibly be a couple's trip? My mood brightened all at once. Despite all his harsh words, Scott cared about me. From that day, I put more effort into housework than usual, waiting for Scott to bring up the topic of the trip. However, no matter how long I waited, he would not mention anything about the trip. Out of curiosity, I began to check the home computer more frequently. Looking at the browsing history, it seems like Scott was still searching for hotels. I wondered if he was seriously selecting an accommodation for us. One day, while periodically checking on the computer, I noticed a completed reservation notification on a booking site. The reservation was for this upcoming weekend. Finally, he must have finished selecting a hotel for us. While anxiously waiting for Scott to invite me, it was already Friday. Unable to hold back, I asked Scott, "Scott, don't you have something to tell me?" Scott looked at me, slightly startled.
What are you talking about?
But I couldn't insist on him to talk about the trip. He became grumpy and went to sleep. And just like that, Saturday dawned. "Good morning, Scott."
What's with you? Dressed up this early in the morning?
Because...
Never mind. I'll be leaving once I'm ready. I won't be home today.
With that, he quickly got ready and left the house. What was happening? Did he change the reservation after that? The name written in the companion section was not mine, but another woman's name. Companion Lily? 25 years old? At that moment, I understood everything. What he had been planning all along was not a trip with me, but a trip with a young mistress named Lily. In that moment, all my feelings of love, gratitude, and respect for Scott swiftly faded. I was quick to react. To confirm his affair, I headed to the hotel that Scott had booked. Upon arrival, I made sure to imprint in my mind the sight of my husband and the young woman cheerfully entering the hotel. Of course, I didn't forget to take photos for evidence. When I returned home, I thoroughly checked our computer. It took some time, but I was able to find texts exchanged between Scott and Lily, as well as photos of them together. Now I can confront him. Just you wait. There was still plenty of time until he returned from his trip. I left the house and spent the day aimlessly until the evening, then savored my time alone in my empty house. I may have been scolded by Scott for lazing around, but now those days of tension seems unreal. I even abandoned housework the next day, ordered delivery, and spent my time however I liked. On Sunday night, Scott finally came home. "Welcome home. You're late, aren't you?" Scott's eyes widened at the sight of me lounging on the sofa.
Hey, what's going on?
What do you mean, what's going on?
Why are you still sitting on the sofa when I, your husband, have returned home? You're not even greeting me at the door. That's not right.
Noticing the delivery bag on the table, Scott's anger started to seep in.
Hey, what is this? Look at you living a high life while I'm not here.
I sighed at him and said, "And where were you staying this weekend, Scott? Weren't you enjoying yourself?"
If you knew, you wouldn't behave like this. Sounds like you want to see that again.
Scott said, rifling through a drawer.
Huh? It's not here.
Scott flew at me, spitting angrily.
Where did you hide the divorce papers?
They're not here anymore.
What?
Scott almost exploded at my response, but the next moment he started laughing sarcastically.
So that's how it is. I see.
What?
You threw away the divorce papers because you don't want to divorce me, thinking I wouldn't leave you, huh? You really are senseless. I feel bad. Your only mother couldn't even raise a kid right.
I really don't understand what you're saying.
So you want to play dumb, huh? Too bad. I can get as many divorce papers as I want from the city hall. I'll go get them right now.
I didn't say I threw them away.
Then why aren't they here?
They're not here because I've already submitted them.
What?
Didn't you hear me? I signed those divorce papers and submitted them to the city hall yesterday.
Wait, you submitted the divorce papers? Do you even understand what that means?
Of course, isn't it obvious? If you submit divorce papers, the divorce is finalized. Are you telling me you didn't know that, Scott? Scott's face turned beet red at my mockery.
Don't mess with me. You lived a comfortable life with my salary.
Comfortable? Who's saying that? I couldn't help but retort. Where is the comfort in a marriage with someone who constantly belittles and ridicules me? Someone who never shows gratitude no matter how much housework I do.
Belittle you? Of course a housewife like you is obviously below me, the breadwinner. If you want to give me an attitude like that, I'm done. Be all alone and realize your own foolishness. Get out right now.
Scott kicked me out, yelling and ranting. Expecting this, I had already packed my bags. It was a good decision. I picked up my suitcase and proudly left the house. On a whim, I rented a weekly apartment and spent the night there. The next morning, I looked at my phone and saw an overwhelming number of missed calls from Scott. Just then, he called me again. "Oh, what's up?"
Don't what's up me. Where are you now?
It's none of your business. We're not married anymore.
Stop messing around. The divorce papers you submitted on your own are invalid.
Didn't you sign them yourself?
I wasn't serious. You probably did it out of confusion too, right? After a night's rest, you should be cool-headed now. If you apologize, I'll forgive you. So come back.
I haven't done anything I should apologize for.
How dare you test me? Your husband. Well, I provided for you this whole time. If I dump you, you'll be alone again. Is that what you want?
I realized something. It's better to be alone than to be with someone who doesn't care about me. I could tell that Scott was shaking with anger on the other end of the phone. He raised his voice through the phone.
What? I've even compromised. Fine, I don't care about you anymore. You'll regret this.
I'm pretty sure
You'll be the one to regret this. You can't do anything, you're just a loser.
Scott hung up the phone in a fit of rage. I used to be so scared of his yelling, but now all I feel is contempt. He didn't contact me for several days, but a week later, I got a call on my cell phone from him.
Megan, what the hell is this bill?
Once I had confirmed Scott's affair, I had asked a lawyer to file for damages. It seems that he finally received the bill. Oh, did it arrive? It's written clearly on the bill.
Why do I have to pay damages? You're the one who left. I even said I was willing to start over, but you're the one who refused to come back because you're so stubborn.
Aren't you misunderstanding something? It's damages for your affair.
Affair? When and with whom did I have an affair?
With Lily, 25 years old. You've been seeing her for a year now.
How did you...
You left so much evidence on your computer. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? You really thought I was a fool, huh? Scott seemed to think I was bluffing. He retorted in a fury.
Evidence? You're lying. There was no such thing on the computer.
Yes, that's right. You're not so stupid as to leave texts and photos with your mistress on there.
Humph. As I knew you were bluffing. You can't fool me.
Why don't you see for yourself whether I'm bluffing or not? I sent Scott the evidence of his affair. Upon seeing it, his tone of voice suddenly became frantic.
How did you get this? I'm sure I deleted it.
Indeed, all the data had been deleted from the computer. But Scott completely forgot that I had graduated from a vocational school with a certification in IT. It took some time, but I was able to restore the deleted data, so I saved them. Realizing he couldn't wriggle out, Scott suddenly changed his attitude.
Look, Megan, you don't really want to do this, do you? Yes, I cheated on you with her, but it was just a fling. You're the only one I truly love. You can't live without me, can you?
I realized that it was just all in my head. Being with you, I was losing confidence in myself. Far from being protected, you were tearing my self-esteem to shreds.
You just have victim complex. In reality, if it weren't for my salary, you couldn't live, could you? Of course you'll receive some harsh words at times.
I can't stand the thought of you, who betrayed me, living your best life. I'll make you take responsibility for what you've done. That's what the charges are for. He finally sensed that I was determined and switched back to being verbally abusive.
Fine, I'll pay. I didn't know you were such a nasty woman. I felt sorry for you being alone, so I got together with you, but it was a big mistake.
Right back at you. You chose me because you thought you could control me, right? It was a big mistake that I didn't see it through at the beginning. You're probably with your mistress Lily because she's young and does what you want, right? Pay the damages quickly and go get with her.
You'll realize soon enough. You're destined for a lonely life.
Scott, although putting up a big front, transferred the agreed upon amount of compensation to me as required by my lawyer. However, a few days later, he contacted me again.
Megan, can you return some of the money to me?
What? I couldn't help but raise my voice. I've never heard of returning a compensation fee. Besides, even after paying the compensation and dividing our property, you should still have plenty of savings left, right?
Well, that's the thing. My savings are running low. That's why I've swallowed my pride to ask.
It seems that Scott, who had invited Lily to live with him, had given her his credit card for emergencies, but she started splurging on his card. Now that Lily had nearly depleted all of his savings with her spending, he was desperate enough to turn to me for help. Exasperated, I told him, I may have been stupid to not see through you and marry you, but you're equally foolish for not noticing your mistress's splurging habit until after you gave her your card.
I realize now that you're the only one for me, Megan. You must feel lonely being single too, right?
Gosh, will you grow up? Do you think I'm going to be single forever?
No, don't tell me. You found someone else?
No, and can you not compare yourself to others?
Well then, what is it? You don't have a family anymore, right?
With the money left by my parents, I've started a new business. Now I'm blessed with great colleagues, and I hardly have time to feel lonely.
You, with no special talents, starting a business?
Are you still saying that? Can't you admit it already? Your words are ruining the people around you.
Me? Ruining?
You look down on others until they lose confidence and spoil your mistress until she gets carried away. Unless you change your selfish behavior, neither you nor anyone around you will ever find happiness. With that, I firmly rejected Scott. After that, he never contacted me again. He probably realized he could no longer look down on me now that I was successfully running my own business. Rumor has it that Lily dumped Scott right after using up all of his savings. Scott, who could only see his partners as less than him or spoil them without being able to build a solid relationship, will likely have a hard time finding a lifelong companion. If anyone is destined for a lonely life, it's Scott, not me. With that thought in mind, I devoted myself to my work once again today.